Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, and I'm your host, Pauline, and it's been a lot of fun with the Olympics going on, and I always talk about how I'm excited for the Olympics this summer because it gives us more basketball to watch, and it's just a lot of fun just to watch a lot of fun players, our national teams, both men and women's, dominate. And so in my last episode, I kind of gave a recap of how our teams have been doing thus far, and also kind of gave a quick preview of some of the games looking forward into the Olympics. And so this episode, I kind of wanted to talk more about what's happening here on the home front with the NBA and some things that are happening in the NCAA. College basketball to me is a lot of fun, and I think that there is almost more fun in watching college basketball than there is in watching professional basketball. So a lot of people think that just college sports in general tend to be a lot more fun because it's just exciting to see how well these young guys are playing, and then also to watch them, some of them, because, a lot of players now are just doing that one and done type thing. And so for some of them, it is fun to watch them as they grow through their programs, their potential. There's going to be, I want to kind of talk about soon. I'm not sure if we'll get to it this episode, but I'm going to try to. And if not, then my next episode for sure, because I wanted to talk about how teams are changing into that small ball and how just the look of the game on the court, both in professional basketball as well as now, trickling into college ball, the way that the makeup of teams is changing and what players look like. And it's always been, I think, a big man sport. Like the taller you are, the more athletic you are, the better. When you're growing up and you're a tall kid or whatever, people ask you, do you play basketball? Have you tried it? If you kind of get, especially when you're really tall, even in elementary school, do you play basketball? Are you good at basketball? Can you dunk yet? Once you get into high school, especially with boys, have you dunked before? Can you dunk? Have you tried it? So it's always been one of those things where it's kind of like a tall guy's sport. And so it's really interesting to see how the makeup is changing, and how it's kind of fun, and it's nice to see it changing because the pace of games are changing. The offense is changing because there's a lot more scoring, I think, when you have guys that are more ball handlers, on the court. And so, it allows for more opportunities to come present themselves with playing small ball. And so that's going to be kind of fun this year. I think that that's going to be something that we're going to see a lot more of in college basketball. It's been changing these last few seasons, but I really think that approach, that faster transitional offense, and just having a lot more ball handlers on the court is going to add to the game. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens to true centers. You always need a true center. I really do believe you always need a true center because you need a rim protector, you need a shot blocker, so there's always going to be a special place and a need for a true five. I'm just interested to see how in these next few years, the other four are going to be changing on the court. And so speaking of rim protectors and real shot blockers, this was a guy, Emeka Okafor. This is not, with the second overall pick, you would expect more noise coming from him. As number 2 overall, you want him to do well. But then, like I said, as number 2, there's always a place in the NBA. You would think that there's always going to be a place in the NBA for a guy who's drafted number 2 overall regardless of how much noise he comes out with his rookie season, his sophomore season, because he's drafted number 2, right? So unfortunately right now, Emeka Okafor right now is actually trying to make a comeback. He hasn't played in 3 years, like I said. And so with his last team being the Washington Wizards due to an injury. And so he actually herniated a disc in his neck. And so rightfully so, he has not been able to play and is, conditioning himself and trying to build up his health, rehab with his injury and things like that to make a comeback into the NBA. And it doesn't surprise me because one, when you're a guy that's drafted number 2 overall in the NBA draft and you are a successful college athlete who played for one program that does well, that kind of a person doesn't want to give up on basketball this early, this young. This is something that they've worked hard for, that they've enjoyed, that they've had success with. So it doesn't surprise me that he would want to come back after this injury. And even though it has been a few years since he's last played and last been able to really play at that level, because it doesn't surprise me because how I said how, it's just in him to want to play basketball, but then also the money. It's the way that the free agency is going. Derek Fisher is wanting to make a comeback. And I really, Ray Allen is wanting to make a comeback. And Ray Allen has been saying recently that he's doing really well in his workouts and that, he's looking like his younger days, And I really think that it has a lot to do with the money that's being dished out right now. And on top of the fact of the love of the game, there's a love of the money that the game brings also. And so in the way that the free agency has been set up, in a way that these, salary caps are this off season and next off season, it does not surprise me that somebody with a drive and the potential, somebody, who was beloved so much early in his professional career, as far as Emeka Okafor is concerned, would want to come back. So it's going to be kind of interesting because he is a shot blocker. He is protector. He's big. So, and I think that that's going to be something else. The way the makeup of the game on the floor is changing. And so in these 3 years that he's been out, that's going to be something else that he's going to have to transition with too. It's completely different than what it was 3 years ago when he was playing. And so he's 33. And so he's a little bit older, but that's okay. He still has a few more runs in him, and he could be a very, very good off the bench kind of big guy, because then you have a really good rim protector. You have somebody that's going to be great on defense for you. And so it's not going to, hurt your team to have somebody like that. And then I know that been some speculation about, perhaps like the Warriors, they got rid of Festus Ezeli as well as Andrew Bogut. It's just going to be kind of interesting to see how it's going to be. I mean, even the Cavaliers, they no longer have Mozgov. He's over with the Lakers. Talked about Sasha retiring. So, it's not like there is nowhere that he could go. It's just going to be interesting to see where he's going to go. And his agent has said that he's not quite 100% yet. Probably wouldn't be for another 5-6 months. I always talk about this too. I love a good comeback story. I love it when they come back better than ever. And if he has that drive and he wants to make it happen, then why not? So, I'm looking forward to talk right now. So I'm really excited to see how this manifests and see what happens with Emeka as he tries to this comeback and transition back into the NBA from his injury. So we're going to take a quick break right here. You're listening to the Golden State Media Concepts basketball podcast. And when we come back, I want to discuss Russell Westbrook and his new extension, as well as a college athlete who has decided to give up basketball playing for a top program and deciding to run track instead, as well as the Players Voice Awards. So keep it locked here. You're listening to Golden State Media Concepts basketball podcast, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back. This is your host, Pauline, and this is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. And before the break, we are kind of discussing a little bit college basketball. And, Emeka Okafor, when he was playing at UConn, he was one of my favorites. Diana Taurasi, I really liked them because I was kind of like when I was in elementary school, so I was trying to be like them. I really am looking forward to his comeback and hopefully seeing if he can get a few more years out of him. With the NCAA talk, there has also been, so we discussed before how the NBA has decided to pull the All-Star game out of Charlotte due to their law, the HB2 law. And we also talked about how there's other organizations and other companies that are deciding to pull out because of that. And it's kind of trickled now into the NCAA. And there was a poll of some NCAA coaches, and over 56% of them have said that they feel that tournaments for basketball should not be held in, states or different cities that honor or have similar laws to the HB2 in North Carolina. And so it's quite interesting because they have decided, they haven't decided anything as far as what cities or whatever are not allowed to host tournaments, because there's a variety of tournaments in both the preseason and the postseason that take place in a variety of cities across the nation. And it's a lot of fun. That was how I got to see, Denzel Valentine play was during a preseason tournament. And so it's fun when you're a hoops fan, when these tournaments are in a city near you and you can go watch some players from different schools come and play different programs that you may not be able to see, and see some of these phenomenal young athletes before or after season. It's just a lot of fun and it gives you opportunity. And so it also brings in a lot of revenue as well. We had talked about how with, North Carolina and the All-Star game, that was an estimated over $100 million that they lost out on just from that one event pulling out. And so with basketball comes a lot of money. The NCAA has decided that they really want to make sure that, moving forward, that where they host, especially like championship tournaments and things like that, so postseason and things, that both the spectators and the participants do not feel any discrimination when coming to either participate in these events or enjoy these events. Coaches have said that they don't want to do any tournaments in North Carolina, which is really interesting until something is changed about that. And then also the NCAA for host cities, and because you put in bids and things like that, and so with their bids as well, they are asking them to there's like a questionnaire that they're having these cities submit when they're submitting their bids, so they and it kind of goes based upon like your local state laws or ordinances and policies. How do you make sure that spectators and participants are not going to feel any discrimination and things like that. And so, it's just going to be really interesting to see moving forward how these different laws are going to affect basketball, impact sports just in general. And so it's going to be really interesting because, like I said, so they're going to have to turn in these questionnaires by Friday, actually. And so detailing, local anti-discrimination laws, as well as different provisions for, their facilities, like how are their facilities going to accommodate everything. And so it's going to be, I just think it's really interesting how, again, we're seeing that crossover with politics and sports, whether we like it or not, whether people think that that they correlate or not, it's happening. And so, and how that is going to affect now, even at the college level of sports. So, that's going to be one thing that I just, and the way that I look at, I get it. I get why these different organizations are wanting to, do the best that they can given the circumstances. And I mean, there's a variety of reasons why cities don't get picked to host different events. And so, it can be any reason why. And so this is just something else that they're adding to it, which I don't think it's bad. There's multiple cities throughout the United States that these events can be held in. And so they will always have another choice when it comes to where these tournaments, these different, all-star games and a variety of events are held. There's always going to be another choice. Moving forward a little bit with, we've been touching on every episode a little bit of free agency and different big major names, where they're signing, where they're not signing, where they're moving to, where they're staying. And Westbrook has decided to stay in OKC. And I do not think that this is that big of a surprise. I know, especially there's been a lot of word out there how upset he was by, Kevin Durant moving forward and moving on to the Warriors. And then we weren't really sure what Westbrook was going to do. Of course, the fans were hoping that he would stay. And, he was drafted by the Thunder. So he's been there his entire professional career. That's where they've allowed him to grow and to, develop as such a strong, dominating player. And just this past season, he was averaging 23 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. So he does a little bit of everything, and he's really aggressive. And I think that he's a lot of fun to watch, especially when he is in his zone. He is a lot of fun to watch. And so they actually, the Thunder and Westbrook have come to an agreement, and it's a 3-year extension for $85 million. And so that alone, the money, but then on the flip side, he also gets to stay one of the faces of that franchise and gets to be one of the leaders of that organization. And he really gets to carry that team, and the focus is on him and solely him right now. And so I can see why he would want to stay with that too, build your team and stick with your team. And he's one of those guys that, as of right now, he's loyal to the soil. So, we'll see how that goes. And he does have that option. So with the extension and with this deal, he has a player option, I believe, after the 3rd year, or that 3rd year player option. So he could potentially be a free agent in 2018. So we'll see, depending on these next few seasons, especially with this upcoming season, how things go out. And OKC, I think, will be just fine. I think they're going to do well in this season moving forward. He may stay, he just may be one of those guys that's a lifer. You get drafted to a team and you stay there. He just very may well be. And if, unlike with the Heat and Dwayne Wade, with the money situation over there, OKC recognizes the value that Westbrook brings to the franchise and organization as a whole. They're willing to dish out that money to keep him because he brings in money and he brings in fans and he brings in wins as well. And so, they're going to do things to kind of make him happy and to make him stay. And I think it's smart. I think it's wise. Why not? He deserves it. It's not like he doesn't deserve it. It's not like he has not on and off the court proven his worth. And so I was actually very excited to hear that Westbrook was going to stay. I know that I've also said that I love the super teams, but there's just something about when a player does stay and, you know, the organization recognizes their worth and they, you know, build together. So I think it's going to be a very exciting season for Westbrook. It's going to be a little bit different. The whole entire makeup of that team, it's going to be a little bit different. And so it's going to be really good. I think that if he can, Westbrook's aggressiveness, and I love how he attacks the basket, and he's fearless when it comes to attacking the basket. I just kind of want to see a little bit more of team ball, because I really do think that that's what hurt them in the semifinals against the Warriors. Is he sometimes gets into this mode where it's me versus everyone else, and you know, you sometimes can't do it all by yourself. You got to incorporate those other 4 guys that are on the court with you somehow, some way, even if it's just to open up more opportunities for yourself. But you still got to kind of, you got to involve everyone. That's kind of like if he works on that a little bit, you know, so that we can get the whole team involved, and both on offense and defense, you know what I'm saying? And so that'll be a really good thing for Westbrook as well. That's, you know, just adding an element to his game. There's nothing wrong with being, attacking the basket, but then there's some times when you gotta, pass it out so that you can get reset or whatever. So we're gonna take a quick break right here, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk about the Players' Voice Awards that were exclusively actually on social media. So I want to discuss that a little bit, as well as an athlete, a college basketball player who has decided he's going to use his last 2 years of eligibility to run track. And so keep it right here. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. And before we wrap up the show, I wanted to kind of talk about the Players' Voice Awards. So the Players' Voice Awards are kind of like, the for us, voted by us, because of us type of a thing. And so this is something where the players actually vote for the different categories, and it's just kind of like a fun thing. This year, the awards were exclusively awarded, I guess you could say, just on Twitter. This is, again, another, glimpse into how the NBA is going to start using social media more exclusively and using social media to its advantage. So it was kind of fun because it just was, it only took about an hour for them to tweet these like video clips and to tweet the results of the Players' Voice Awards. And so a few of them that I thought were a lot of fun to mention were Kawhi Leonard won Best Defender. And so these, again, are awards that the players vote for, and they recognize these guys in these different categories. And so Kawhi Leonard was voted Best Defender. Best guy off the bench, Best off the bench was awarded to Jamal Crawford, which is really cool. Best rookie, not surprisingly, went to Karl Towns. He's been a lot of fun to watch. And then player you secretly wish was on your team. So this is somebody who we love to hate him, but according to the players, this is somebody that they wish was on their team. And that went to King LeBron James. And so it's just like a lot of fun. It's just like something that they do, and it's kind of just gives us fans like an insight and something else to just kind of talk about. Westbrook, of course, was voted best dressed. He's always kind of doing his own thing off the court. You can see him, for those little press conferences and things like that. And he's always kind of like, pushing the boundaries with that. But I mean, whatever. He's another guy that I think doesn't wear socks all the time, and that is just weird to me. But maybe he wears booties. I don't know, but it doesn't look like it, and it just bothers me. But so that was a Player Voice Awards, which is a lot of fun. Like I said, it was just on Twitter, so you can probably just go back and look at some of those. They had video clips with the different players and things like that, and so that's a lot of fun there. And so it's going to be, again, as everything is changing, and as social media is integrating, and how the NBA has changed grown their partnership with Twitter, especially with Twitter and Vine, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how they use it. And I guess that's just one preview of how they're going to start using it. And, like the Players Association as well. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how these new elements and dynamics that you're going to get for little things that are fun like this. And I also mentioned how there is a college basketball player. He was a walk-on for Kentucky, and being a walk-on period for any team, no matter what the sport, is very difficult. It's very hard to do. A lot of people say, oh, when you go to college, you should try out for a team. You can just be a walk-on, but it's not easy. And, the life of a walk-on is really not easy. It does take a lot, and it shows and says something when you are able to walk on, especially when you're able to walk on to a program of this caliber, Kentucky. His name is EJ Florell, and he is actually, so he walked on. He's played 3 seasons with the team as a basketball player. In those 3 years, I believe he played about 29 games. He had some minutes in 29 games. He's had 3 points. So, it's not one of those things that's the life of a walk-on. You take that chance that unless you are just amazing and able to be out those scholarship athletes, or even able to be out a scholarship athlete and take a scholarship, you're not going to do much. You're not going to see the court as often as you may expect or you may really desire. But at the same time, you're on the team. You're having a lot of fun. You get to still participate in the team. In the game that you love. And so there's still a lot of other, pros and cons of being a walk-on. However, the cool thing about him is that he has decided. So he has 2 years of eligibility left as far as the NCAA is concerned, and he's actually going to use those 2 years to run track. And he's going to have a scholarship with track. So that's pretty nice, because unlike with basketball, these last 2 years are going to be, paid for, which is great. And his father is also a 2-time Olympian who is the track coach there. And so he mentioned, EJ mentioned and announced that this decision was up to him, that he made this decision on his own, and that he's always, been in love with both sports. And when he was in high school, he did very well at the state level in track. And he even mentioned this too, he comes from a family of track runners, and like his mom in the 1992 Olympics, actually, she won a silver medal. And for the 100-meter hurdles, he just, his background, like it's in him to want to be a track runner. And so it's going to be really exciting for him. And I'm sure that his family is very excited about this, and him making that transition is going to be interesting. It's not difficult. My dad actually was a 3-sport athlete in college, because it was like, before seasons were, basically year round, you could play multiple sports in college. You didn't have to just be a 1-sport athlete. You could go to school and play multiple sports. So, and my dad was a track runner. He played football and basketball as well. So it's not as common nowadays, but it's not impossible to transition from one sport to another as a college athlete. And so it's going to be really cool for him. I think that these last 2 years, he's going to be able to use his talents and use his athleticism and be more than just, a walk-on. And it's going to be nice for, the fact that he's going to have that scholarship and the last 2 years. And why not? He has 2 years to do it. Perhaps he may one day compete in the Olympics in the future and follow in both his parents' footsteps. So that's going to be really cool for him. And I just thought it was kind of a fun thing that he was deciding to, transition over after 3 years playing basketball in college. And so that's going to actually do it for this episode of the Basketball Podcast. You can, of course, always listen to this episode and any of my past episodes at gsmcpodcast.com, iTunes, Google Play, as well as SoundCloud. I am on Twitter at GSMC_basketball. We're going to be having a lot of fun these next few weeks as we watch a lot of Olympic basketball, as well as moving into the college basketball season, which is going to be a lot of fun as well. And so I will be with you guys next time. Once again, this is Pauline, and you have been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.